not to do?
Are
and
we
is
6
that
feet apart?
physical
Nope.
or is that spiritual?
Breaking the rules.
Hopefully you're not doing spiritual distancing.
Yes.
That's not a good thing. Social distancing in this moment in time, that is probably a good thing.
I think it's like to wear a mask or not to wear a mask. That is the question at the moment. I just went to the store and there was like, it was divided. Some people had masks on, some people didn't. So then it made you think, is this person trying not to infect me? So therefore they probably got it and that's why they got the mask. So it was getting very, very complex.
Well, some people have made that an art piece.
Yes.
Yeah.
That is true.
In America, you're not satisfied to do just a normal. You can't be normal.
I've seen
several
many different types
Crazy
of
pictures
masks
on Facebook.
Yes, and some of them I'm like, I don't even think that works. People, that's not a legitimate mask.
Well,
like one guy had his shoe over his nose.
Oh,
his
that
mouth.
would have not been good if some people I know had done that.
I'm like, dude.
Well, the other day,
Okay.
somebody had taken literally a small garbage bag and they had put it up underneath their chin, over their face, cut holes in it for eyes, nothing to breathe out of, and taped it to their ball cap.
Oh, gosh.
I went, okay, that's cheap if you get a bag of 100.
And you saw somebody.
I don't know how good it worked.
like, I don't know if people are making these up, but I saw, one of those big water cooler 5-gallon tanks turned around upside down. So you've got the little hole at the top and they cut the bottom off and they had it over their head like a spaceman from the 1930s
I hope
sci-fi.
they drew a face on it like a robot. That would have been worthwhile.
And then you got the ways people are keeping people within 6 feet of them, their perimeter. They've got like, somebody posted a picture of a man that had taped pool noodles
No way.
on a hat, so they stuck straight out, so people would have to stay
In their 6 foot
in
radius?
their 6 foot radius.
In their own?
Yes, I'm like, that's just crazy. And then another person actually got, those inflatable balls that you can get inside of.
Oh,
Yes.
They actually were inside one of those, taking a walk down the street.
Okay, I'm glad it wasn't shopping, because it'd be pretty hard to get things and stick it in there with them.
I'm amazed at people's creativity and the things that they do. It's just crazy. Maybe you guys can put in comments below, some of the things that you've seen or some of the ways that you've...
Or if you have a good idea
Oh, yeah, or a good
on
idea.
how to social distance, but not spiritual distance.
No.
This is a good time to do close spiritual distancing with God.
Yes. Yes.
In that moment, you may actually be healed if you are sick. Or he'll put a special hedge of protection around you.
So are you telling everybody that this isn't God's wrath upon the earth?
It is not God's wrath.
And
It's not.
The virus didn't come from heaven. It's not.
It's not the mark of the beast
No.
if you take the vaccine. Because they're still trying to figure that one out.
So
That started a long time ago. I will just say what I tell everyone else: the Antichrist is not on the earth.
no.
So don't waste your time expecting that to happen. All right. And I do know, in a way, this is a serious time for people who are in places, unlike our city, which is the largest city land-wise in America. We have so much space and distance already.
Mm-hmm.
And we have these awesome sea breezes that blow continually, so we're not affected as much. However, everyone's doing their best
They are.
to abide by what's required or requested of them. It's not a command, it does help, to what God says. This is not a government takeover. This is a takedown of the virus.
Yeah.
And God is still telling me it's going to pass. And I am expecting many miracles, and this week actually have been quite a few already. The opposite of what they had, forecast.
Yeah, because supposedly this was supposed to be the...
I actually heard them, the
hardest
government
week,
officials
but
saying
it's
it would be
not.
the most deaths and the worst
Yeah.
case scenario possible, and this whole week would be the darkest week we've had. And I don't know where this whole thing about 3 days of darkness 2 weeks of darkness.
10 days
10
of
days.
darkness.
It keeps shrinking.
It keeps changing.
And then going, there aren't going to be any days of darkness right now.
I forgot to pay my electric bill, so I almost went into
That
days of
might
darkness.
change that
Yes.
situation.
But I remember the last
Although
minute.
I don't even know if they're allowed to cut it off.
They've actually changed it a little bit. They're giving you like a bit of a hand, like a help.
Oh,
yeah, you
that's
get a
nice.
grace,
Yeah.
some kind of a grace
yeah, a lot
right
of companies are doing that.
now. Yes,
A lot of companies are doing
it's
that.
just an amazing time to be alive to see how different countries handle
Yeah.
this, and even the
Yeah.
people in different countries how they're handling this. And some entire countries are in lockdown, or huge major cities are in lockdown.
In England, they're kind of like that. They're very,
Yeah.
very strict. Everyone can go out for 1 hour a day, and that's it. And you have to be far from people. You can't be driving around, they'll stop you. Because everyone's very close together there.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, you're right.
community-wise.
Yeah,
Like in America, I feel like we're all in our cars a lot anyway. So
Yes.
it kind of makes it a little bit easier. If you can just do your shopping safely and get your gas without getting, touching everything.
Yeah.
You can kind of stick away, What was that?
I've been touching everything, people.
I've been touching everything.
Yep.
I am, because I'm releasing the anointing
Releases the
everywhere I go
anointing,
for
yep.
wholeness, to crush the darkness, push it back. I'm not giving you the right to do that, but I'm just obeying orders from headquarters
Yeah.
that I am doing what I can and I know to do to prevent the darkness from taking advantage of it and bashing, mashing, and trashing him. That's what I have been doing.
A lot of ministers and people out there, they've had kind of different approaches to it, haven't they?
They have.
There's quite a lot of doom and gloom, and there's also quite a lot of kind of radicalism. It's like there's lots of different. It's almost quite interesting just to watch how everybody.
Yeah, and that brings me to a couple people have. I know we're going to do Q&A session later, but
Say I'm not having any problems spreading this word about social distancing. It's just taking over. Go ahead. What were you going to say?
but
Jen?
that just brings me to a couple people on your YouTube channel have asked. They don't understand why you seem to be, which you're not. You seem to be the only one that's saying,
This is not the
Controversial.
end.
Christ, this isn't the end. Christ isn't coming back soon. The greater things are coming, but she's not the only one that's saying it.
Nope,
You're-
there's
you're
a
just-
lot of very
because
intelligent
You're just listening to the
people
wrong
in
people.
the body of Christ that are in absolute agreement.
Yes.
These are the greater days, the days of the knowledge of the glory, the wealth transfer, the body beginning to care about one another, the greater works happening.
And that was the other thing. They wanted to know where is it biblically that you can prove that this isn't the end? And I'm like, what you just said.
Well, Mark 16 is
Yeah.
number one place where Mark 16, when the disciples, Jesus had just talked to the disciples about the literal end time, like the Antichrist and all that stuff. And they were saying, well, what are the signs? How will we know when this is going to happen? Is this going to happen soon? And I love his answer, Jesus, he said, well, there'll be wars and rumors of wars, and nation will rise against nation, and the kingdom of light shall rise against the kingdom of darkness, but the end is not yet. Mm-hmm. And I will tell you, we are still right there. We are right there in that place. We're not going to go anywhere yet, because Christ began to say the things that he had given us and the things he expected us to do and wanted us to do. And even his last words, occupy, take authority and dominion until I return.
Yeah.
And we all know he hasn't come back yet.
And occupy doesn't mean occupy your rapture rug.
Or your sofa with your channel selector. It means to do something.
Yes.
To take authority over all the darkness, to rule and reign with him, to declare the things of God, to pray in, which we have been doing. The Chronicles prayer has been filled up, people. The bowls for the Chronicles prayer are full.
What's the Chronicles prayer?
You know what that prayer is. If my people who are called by my name will humble themselves and pray and, get rid of their sin,
Yep.
I will hear their prayer from heaven and I will come and heal their land. Okay, that was one of the biggest things everybody talks about and has been talking about. Well, those bowls are full. When we reach a time, there's bowls before the altar of God. In heaven, I'm talking about. When they get full from our prayers, from our worship, from our declarations, that they are tipped over the earth, literally tipped. And that begins to bring in the next move of God. So we should be expecting that. We should be accelerating that. Even in the moment, even in the hardest times when some of the most powerful things that God ever did happened. And I try to encourage people, even if you're in a place that's not so good, start worshiping God. The hardest you've ever done. Thank Him for the things He's done and for the things He's going to do. And don't try to focus on like this is going to be forever and everything's dark and ugly and horrible and where's God? He's sitting right next to you probably. Yeah. So why not let Him hear some good things come from you? It says in the Word that whatsoever we say we shall have.
Yeah.
Whatever you dare to decree and declare, it will be given to you. So I tell people, watch what you're saying in this time. Don't agree with people who are spewing negative things or angry things. Or the left, whatever the left is saying, which is the end and everything somebody else's fault but their own. I just say this is not a time to be at war with our government or with each other.
Yep.
This is literally a time everyone in the world is in the same place that we all are. So we're an example of light and hope. That's what we should be talking about. Yeah. And helping others, even if it's just by inspiring them. You can call them. It's okay. That's still social distancing. Send them some inspiring text or emails or phone calls. Anything that will make their day better. Yeah, that's what we should be doing.
Put little signs in your yard because people are still allowed to walk around. Put signs in
your
yard that encourage people and uplift them. And that's what I've noticed through this whole thing is that
they're putting them on fences of developments and everything.
Yeah, and it's bringing kindness back.
You talk to people you don't normally talk to.
You don't. Riding my bike through the neighborhood, people are like in their yards with their kids, and they're like, "Hey, how you doing?"
Sitting outside like they did in the 1950s.
This one whole family was sitting on their hood of their car, and they were like, "Hey, how you doing?" And I was like, "I'm great. How are y'all? We're doing great." It is. It's like back in the 50s when everybody was there. You were neighbors.
You had no internet. Yeah. Nobody had cell phones.
This is going to seem like an extreme view, but I said to somebody on the other day, well, do you know what? I know that this isn't going to go down too well, but it's kind of like a win-win. It's kind of like a win-win situation when you're a Christian because you get to sort of meet God quicker. So it's like, why is everybody going around being so fearful? Because it's like, Kat, you've been there when people have been transitioning, right?
I have.
So in that moment, like they're...
You mean when they're moving to heaven, right? Yeah, let's clarify what you mean.
When they're moving to heaven... Like that is probably the closest you're going to be to God in your whole life so far will be in that moment, and you'll be right next to God. And it's like if you fill your mind even with those thoughts a little bit, it's like really if anything's going to take you out, it's going to be backfiring because you're going to be instantly in the presence of God.
Yes, instantly healed too.
Right.
Yeah.
Anyone who belongs to God. Well, it's always a good subject to bring up, and that is one of my thing I am well versed in. People passing from this life into heaven.
Can we hear a couple of stories about that, Kat?
A lot. We have a lot of things about that. That might be another podcast, but
yeah, you should.
I actually have been present when people have left, even our own friend, and I can talk about our own friend.
I was thinking about Chief.
Yeah, my husband's best friend, Chief, who knew him before he knew me. He was an American Indian. And they were very close friends. And in the last part of his life, my husband actually did take care of him. It wasn't the best scenario, but he was a believer. His wife had passed some time before that, and he really was missing her.
She was like 5 months before.
Something like that. Yeah. And I just kept encouraging him. And
maybe a year.
But he wasn't physically doing well at that time, even though we had a lot of prayer and stuff for him. But he was definitely being taken care of, and they called us and said, and my husband was on the way to the airport to pick me up and bring me home from an event. And while we're driving home, the hospital called and said, he's not going to make it. You need to come. So we literally just went straight to the hospital. We were present when he passed, and I will tell you, it was definitely, for me, always a glorious experience. And this precious doctor who was there, an intern, I guess he was an intern in the room, so he thought that Chief would be alone, and then he was grateful when we came in and he found out we weren't actually blood relatives. He was shocked that we cared enough to come. I said, of course we care. I said, but I'll let you know, it won't be very long before he goes, because I had started seeing portals opening over him.
What did that look like, Kat?
It looked glorious. These are literally openings, like you see the light of God come around this
Is it
oval
like-
opening, literally, and then that part of the ceiling disappears, and I see up into heaven, up into the heavenlies. And I went, okay. So I told this person who didn't know anything about me, I said, well, he won't be here very much longer. He goes, oh, we think he may last the night now because he's, I think it was just the presence of God in his room.
Yeah.
That his heart rate went up. And that became a little bit better. And I said, no, I don't think so. And we were trying to call all of our daughters to say goodbye to him because they were very close to him. And I knew he wouldn't leave until he got to talk to the last one. And so finally I got her on the phone and put the phone down by his ear. It wasn't coherent, but he was still reading. And she was just telling him how much she loved him, that she knew he was going to be happy in a little bit and cared very much for him. And then while she was on the phone, at the very end of her conversation, angels rushed into the room. And I turned to this intern and go, oh, the angels just came.
And what did he do with his
His
face?
eyes got really big. He was looking around in the scene. I said, I know you can't see them, but I can. Trust me, they're there. They come around his bed. So he's going to be leaving real soon. He goes, but all his vitals look fine. And that may be true, but his mansion is done in heaven. 'Cause
Yeah.
when your mansion's done, they will come and get you. And so as soon as she said goodbye and the phone was hung up, the angels raced towards him. And his spiritual body sat up out of his physical body. And all of a sudden, all of the things were blinking off, the alarms, that say the person's gone.
Mm-hmm.
And the line went straight. He flatlined. And the guy was undone, and I said, "Oh, they have him now." And I was waving goodbye to him and he looked young. He looked so healthy.
So could he see that you could see him in that state?
Yes, he could.
That was good. That must have been quite good for him.
Because when you're seeing the spirit realm, people obviously know you're seeing them.
Because you're looking at where they are.
You're looking at them and waving
Yeah.
and saying goodbye. And the angels didn't even give me 2 cents. Okay, they're there for a reason, and so they just took him by his hands, and then he left and went out. And the guy goes, are they still here? And I said, no, they've gone. He's gone. He's left for heaven. And he went over and he just kept staring at all the equipment and saying, but we were really sure he'd be here all night. I said, well, his mansion was done. And our friend had the biggest grin on his face. He looked like he was in his 20s because we had known him that long. And my husband was just rejoicing that his best friend was no longer in any kind of a pain or suffering. And he left for heaven. And so it's really a glorious thing to be there and experience the presence of God, the glory that is coming off of the angels. It's just like, it just comes when they move. Every time they make a movement, it just comes off of their wings, off of their gowns, and the very robes they're wearing. The angels, the light that's on them is amazing.
You said something about like a Native American aspect to Chief before. Was that something to do with like some angels connected to him, or was that a story I'm mixing up with something else?
No, he's Native American. He was Native American, but he's known Jesus for a long time. His parents were both Christians.
So the angels that turned up and stuff, they weren't kind of like Native American looking, because I think I'm mixing up stories.
You're thinking of Jolt,
who's the guardian angel over the entire West.
Because they have that vibe to them, don't they? Some of them, they're kind of very.
He had very sharp features.
I'm mixing up stories. Yeah. Okay. Sorry.
And so his own personal angel was already in the room with him. The other ones I saw come in were courier angels who would take him on up to heaven.
Now, did he
his own angel did look Native American because he was there.
Yeah.
And
your guardian angels have similarities.
A guardian angel is definitely different than the host, like the army of heaven. They all look like creatures, but Jolt did look Native American. Before I went on my Western tour a long time ago, I was caught up in the Spirit, and the Holy Spirit took me to Phoenix, Arizona, where I saw a lightning bolt shooting across the sky and let me be probably, I would say, within 50 feet of this massive angel who was dressed like a Native American. He had very sharp features in his face, but he had the fire of God coming off of his wings. He had living eyes all in the front of him. He was fighting with a lightning staff against the darkness in the area. Mm-hmm. And I actually sketched it, and then I gave it to Walter, who drew it, and we actually do have that. Maybe we'll have to post that.
Yeah, we have a picture of Jolt, and it's amazing.
Maybe we can post that on this podcast so people can see it.
We can use it as the
The picture.
The picture.
The picture, yeah.
So that would be his
Now,
name is Jolt.
Back to Chief.
Back to Chief, yes.
Did he go by a transport? Or
I didn't see a transport, but
see.
sometimes they're outside the building, and
Okay.
it depends on what they probably would like to go the best.
I can almost picture him riding a horse.
He loved horses.
Because I
He
know
probably
he loved
did.
horses. It's like that's the first thing that popped in my head when I was going to ask you that question. I almost could picture him and the angels.
They probably
riding
had
horses.
Heaven has many, many, many horses, and it probably was a horse.
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking myself, because I was looking, where's the transport? But
He also liked to run.
Chief ran. He ran
liked
some.
he used to be a cross-country runner or something, so you could almost think of the fact that he might enjoy being a part of a group of people that sort of,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? I don't know. See, I'm going off
different-
topic today. I'm sorry.
They have many different ways that people are transported to heaven, and
Maybe he got given some awesome trainers that he could sort of run in the heavens with.
people, I'm sure, do run in heaven. There's sports there anyway. So now we'll pull it back to the social distancing.
Yes, we got way off topic here, but that's
It's
okay.
still exciting, right?
I like doing
people need to hear these things.
rabbit trails.
And so
I lived down rabbit
I've been
trails.
present when people were almost 100 years old and they passed and they looked like they were in their 20s, and they're
Well, we've
always
also
filled with the light
received-
of God.
We received testimonies from people like that.
Oh,
That girl that was with her dad.
the girl that was a nurse in the hospital.
With her dad. I don't know if
Yes.
you've heard this story, but she sent it in. I don't know if it was an email or a letter, but
It was a letter.
She wanted to thank Kat so much for the revelation of heaven, and she had read the book to her dad.
Yeah, she had read the book.
And
book one.
so she was there when he passed.
She actually prayed and asked God. She said, I want to know when he goes. I want to be in the room, and I want to be there when he goes.
So she was taking his pulse. She had her hand on his hand,
and there was a few other people in the room.
She was watching the clock,
mm-hmm.
and she said that
she thought he moved his hand.
She thought he moved his hand, and then
because hers started rising up.
When she turned and looked, her hand was floating in midair because his spiritual arm was lifted.
Was lifted up
because
he was leaving.
His spiritual body was coming out of his physical
and there
body.
were other people in the room. They could see it too.
And everybody they said her hand just started rising by itself.
And she thought it was just his natural hand.
And so when his spiritual body left, her arm just went back down.
She was saying goodbye to him because she knew it was him leaving.
Wow.
So she actually got to
be there when he
experienced
left.
that.
That's right.
So
that was
it's
awesome.
really cool.
That's a cool story. Yeah.
That's pretty wild.
So you know what? Things are going to get wilder. They're going to get wilder, and this world would become more and more spiritual oriented.
Yes.
Meaning, more and more people will see the heavenly beings, and more will see the other side also, and the veil between them. We know the veil in the temple was torn, of course, when Christ was crucified on the cross, which gave us entrance directly into, the presence of God. But this is a different veil. There is a veil between the spirit realm and the physical realm, and that's why people, unless they have that gift or God allows them to, they do not see the spirit realm activity, although it's impacting our lives, and that's why I'm assigned to train people how to understand it. And even now there's a lot of spiritual activity. I really wish people could see how many of the hosts have been released and sent places to pull on strongholds of darkness, spirits of infirmity, death, sickness, and disease. There's probably hundreds of thousands of them all over this earth right now pulling down those strongholds.
Is it directly connected to the virus thing?
It is directly connected to the virus. And
how's that happen? Because people have been praying more? Is that what you're saying?
People are beginning to realize that they don't have to tolerate it. And just because it's here, even when it was found that people didn't have to begin to fear it, they need to start to realize we don't have to tolerate sickness, or poverty, or fear, or attacks of the enemy. If Jesus said we had power over all the power of the enemy, that means we need to exercise it by saying, I'm not tolerating it. I don't serve Satan. I serve the Most High God. I don't have to take all this stuff, because when you become a Christian, you become a supernatural being, and he gives you special abilities. Mm-hmm. And I think that's why these greater works days are here, is because more and more people will stand up, begin to realize, I have authority, I have power over things, I rule with Christ in this world. And the more people that do that, the more hosts will be released. And there will be a time on the earth where there will not be a lot of sickness and disease in many different regions.
It reminds me of that verse where it says, "When I come again, will I find faith?" Because
That's
it's
right.
that
It takes faith.
That rising of faith is happening. In a way, you can't see this thing, so it's like you can't see your faith rising, so it's creating something you can't see inside of you to rise up against the thing you can't see outside of you.
You can begin to feel it, though.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. Like, if you're not a seer, maybe you can't see it, but there's definitely this thing where, like, you see something, and then there's two responses. You either get a little bit in fear, or something rises up and inside of you says, "No, that thing can't come near."
That's
Do you know
exactly
what
what we should be doing. And that's why why would he say that when he returns, that he hopes he finds faith on the earth?
Right.
Because it will be different. It will be different. So people think this is going into the dark days and the perilous times, and then right into the tribulation. But that stuff can't even come until the greater stuff comes first.
Exactly.
And because of manifested sons and daughters literally ruling on the earth, over the land, the sea, the air, the sickness, the disease, the lack, a lot of that stuff will be crushed and pushed back until when those other days come, which are generations away. And there'll be a time when even wild animals will not be fearful of us. And it talks about in the last days where they are not going to be good, that they will be, crushing and hurting people, and the people are shocked. So there's coming a time of generations where there won't be a lot of sickness, disease, poverty, lack, because of the inventions and creations, many of them by Christians, but it's the ruling that we do.
Yeah.
And that takes great faith to rule when you're not seeing anything. You're just choosing to believe the words Christ gave, and then you act on it. When you act on it, you see something happen immediately, your faith explodes.
Yeah.
So when it gets to the point generations from now, when people may not necessarily need a lot of that to happen because they're living a different lifestyle of freedom in many ways, that there may not be that much faith on the earth. But he doesn't want us to get to a place where we don't need faith. You have to always be. I wrote in my Bible, "Don't ever let me get to a day where I don't need you." That would be Jesus.
Yeah.
Because I want my faith to only grow. And there will be some people on the earth, even in that time. And in that time, as a lot of the body begin to be raptured, there'll come a time when there'll be great rapture, there'll be great harvest. But even before the great harvest, we have to learn how to mentor that harvest. If that harvest happened now, what would you do if you had 10 billion people saved overnight? What would you do with them? What would the churches do with them?
Exactly.
If some of the churches don't even understand Revelation and knowing that this is the time of rule and reign, and they're still thinking they'll escape, how would they mentor those people when their church will go from 50 to 500, 500, 5,000, 5,000 to 50,000? So this is a time right now that you're in, even though this virus thing is going on, this is a time to prepare yourself for the greater works, to rule and reign with Christ, and get filled with revelation and let your faith grow, because when that begins to happen, people will be beating on your door to find out about who Jesus is.
Yep.
So this is a time, there's much we can be doing in this time. And I tell people, if your loved one went home, well, we will let you know that on Sunday, if this is posted by then, we will have a special communion meeting on Sunday, this coming Sunday, Easter Sunday, on Facebook.
The Cat Kerr on Facebook.
Yeah, the Cat Kerr on Facebook. And we will have a special, probably around 3 o'clock in the afternoon when everybody's had their dinner or their little mini Easter egg hunts with their 3 people. Not social distancing with their, I guess they could set the eggs 6 feet apart. I don't know how they would do that. But.
Well, you don't.
We
normally,
won't go into
you don't
the
normally
bunny thing
ride
right
the
now.
egg. You don't normally ride. You don't normally hide the eggs right next to each other. So
No. Well, unless you got real little ones, then you kind of do that. But anyway, so we've enjoyed this conversation very much, but we do want to take time to take some questions. So
yes, and I have some really good ones.
what are some questions, Jen?
I got a couple from some kids, which you love to answer questions from kids.
Kids have the greatest imagination, and they actually have great faith.
So the first one is, These are from YouTube, by the way. I on YouTube Community, you can post pictures, and so I posted a picture of a Q&A and asked people if they could ask God one thing about heaven, what would they ask? And so they submitted their questions, and I haven't even got through all of them, and I've already got like 275
Questions?
Yes.
Wow.
So
see, people want to know.
The first one is from Amanda, and they're from her kids, actually. She said, I asked my kids, she asked her kids the question. And the first one is from Luke, who is 5 years old.
5's great.
And he wanted to know, how did dinosaurs die?
On the earth?
Yes.
Okay, that is a very good question.
But let me ask you her daughter's question, Isabel, who's 8 years old. Because they kind of tie in together. Because she wanted to know, when did God make the earth, dinosaurs, and humans?
Okay.
So we could start with the earth creation and then what happened to the dinosaurs.
In the beginning, Genesis 1:1, God made the earth the first time. He made one big landmass on the earth and just one big ocean. Okay, because the dinosaurs were going to be on the earth at that time, he had to make a special way to make sure that moisture came, because it didn't even rain back then.
Yes.
So God lit the whole earth with his glory. And the sun wasn't made, the moon wasn't made. So he put the dinosaurs. He sent watcher angels from heaven. Those watcher angels had flesh on them. So these dinosaurs who were made out of flesh would see them. This was a physical earth.
So the watcher angels is where
the footprints
come from.
Because
that
scientists
they think are cavemen.
They think they're cavemen. There were never any cavemen. Sorry, kids. No Cro-Magnon man. But seriously, these watcher angels would walk with the dinosaurs. The dinosaurs weren't mean. They didn't hurt anybody. They lived together well. They had 20-foot flowers, 400-foot high trees, and these dinosaurs just ate the grass and the vegetation, and they were very happy on the earth. So that was in the beginning, okay.
And then what happened?
What happened was somebody was kicked out of heaven.
Yep.
Somebody named Lucifer sinned, tried to come against God, caused war in heaven, and God the Father kicked him out on lightning bolts, and all the angels who sinned were sent down to the earth. And it says in the book of Jeremiah that the enemy, that would be Lucifer, began to make the earth a wilderness, because then he brought sin in for the first time. Actually, was then he began to rule the dinosaurs and make them bad. Then they began to kill each other, and all that was happening, and God was not happy with it. So he decided that he would do something about it. The first thing he did was he removed his light off the earth, right? He broke the water vapor shield that was filled with all the water. It flooded the earth.
So he popped the bubble.
He popped the bubble, y'all. And the water hit the earth, filled the whole earth, covered up with water. And that's how the dinosaurs were destroyed. Now
the water hit with such a hard force.
It broke the land masses up, and they have found in excavations, that's where you dig in the dirt to find things. They have found the skeletons of whole dinosaur herds, which means when that hit and the earth began to shift, the layers of the earth covered them over. They know they existed, but they don't know how that happened.
So that would technically be the Ice Age.
Yes, because after he flooded the earth, God blew on the earth, and there was the Ice Age.
So Satan was sitting on a block of ice.
The devil was sitting on top of a big ice ball that he could do nothing about that ice ball, okay? So that's how the dinosaurs died. They were made by God. They were friendly, and they loved each other until Satan was kicked out of heaven. Lucifer was kicked out of heaven, and then he began to be evil and possess the dinosaurs, and that's how it all went downhill. And so that's why they were destroyed. But God has some in heaven, so when you get there one day, you can ride on them. You can have one for a pet.
Ride on a pterodactyl.
Like the Flintstones.
Yeah.
Except no cavemen.
Okay.
And then, just so you all know this, God at one point blew on that ice. He melted it. And then there's verse 2.
Yeah.
All this other stuff happened within verse 1. So when verse 2 comes, God is remaking the earth, and he took the water off the sky, the water off the land. He began to put new vegetation, new animals on the earth, and then we all know on the 6th day, God made man, and Adam and Eve were put on the earth. So there's your little Bible lesson.
All right, that was
So
good.
so seeds came in then, all the sort of vegetation and the
When
variety.
he
Yeah.
put the plants were
Because
first.
they kind of contain everything, don't they? So there was probably some seed types.
So
He
since-
actually, when he made the earth, he actually put all the plants first, and then the seed-bearing plants began to spread the seeds in the time when they're supposed to do that. And of course, then there was a sun and a moon, and there was day and night.
and then he created the animals.
And then he
fish
created
and
the
sea.
animals.
So that
They grew
means that.
from natural light. They were made to grow at a natural light.
Yes, from the sun.
So that breaks the,
sun
myth,
shining.
the age-old question of which came first, the egg or the chicken.
The chicken came first.
The chicken came first.
The
Oh,
chicken
I
came
s-
first
I
and
can't-
laid
I don't
eggs.
understand
He
that.
didn't just put eggs to be alone on the earth.
Yes.
He created.
had to throw that in
The
there.
Bible says he created every herb-bearing plant.
Yes.
Herb and seed-bearing plants is what it says in the Genesis book. He so that they would on their own, the seeds would eventually fall from the plants, create more, and also the same thing with the animals. The chicken came first, everybody. There you
Awesome.
go.
Yay.
There you go.
So what is another question?
Okay.
Because now we probably have 5 minutes to answer that.
So this one is also from. She doesn't say her son's name or how old he is, but her name is Mary, and she said, "My son would like to know how high is heaven from the earth."
There is no way you can measure that. Because you're talking about 2 different realms.
Yeah.
There's the spiritual unseen realm, and then there is this physical earth realm. You know, the ground, the trees, the water, the physical stuff you can see. Part of the unseen realm, which is the spirit realm, is where heaven is. Heaven is not on this earth because
Okay.
some people think it is. It's not. It's way beyond our known universe. If there was any way to measure it, although they come in the spirit, angels can leave heaven and be here in a second. Because in the spirit realm, there is no time. Things just happen in a second.
Okay. So, could you explain? Because I know a couple people asked that too. What are the like the first heaven, the second heaven, the third heaven? What are those?
Those are different levels, and that's the best way to say it. There's different levels, like the earth realm and the sky right over the earth would be the first heaven.
Okay.
It's not heaven, the world, it's heavens. It says in the beginning God created the heavens and the earth. So the skies above earth, that is the first heaven. Above those skies, which is some distance out, is what they call the second heaven. That's where a lot of the battles happen between the demonic army
Is that where
and God's army. That's where they
Lucifer-
happen. Lucifer has set up his own little private kingdom up
So
there
he's
in the
not
second
in
heaven.
hell.
He rules over
He
hell.
rules over it, but he doesn't live there.
He doesn't live there, but he does go back and forth. He
Okay.
goes back and forth. And also the real high level demons also don't live in hell. They're placed on thrones around the earth, and they rule from there unless the hosts are sent to unseat them, which
Yes.
they like to do. So
And-
that's if in the spirit realm, there's real life going on.
Yeah.
There's real buildings built in the spirit
yeah.
realm that you don't see with your eyes. Even hell itself, it is in the middle of the earth, but it's a spiritual place, so they'll never find it. They can't find hell, and they won't ever find heaven because they're both spiritual places. But there's real life activities going on there. And hell has gates. It has a courtyard. It is a place, a literal place that exists where the wicked dead go. And it's not just a big hole with fire in it burning. And a lot of people draw it that way, but it says the gates of hell. It talks about them in the Bible. And Christ did go down there on the 3rd day because this is that time of the year when we remember all that. At this point, Christ would have already been crucified. And it said that he would be in hell for the same amount of days that Jonah was in the belly of the whale. So he was down in hell for 3 days. But they were so terrified to touch him, they were afraid God would rescue him. And so we're talking about literal places. Even though they're spirit realm and people are in their spiritual bodies, it's still literal. Like you can touch stuff right here. I'm touching this table. You can hear that. And in heaven, in your mansion, you actually sit on the furniture, enjoy all the beauty and the splendor of heaven, and you live a real life in your spiritual body in this spiritual world. So hell is also real for all those who go that are the wicked dead. We're going to talk more about that on Sunday.
Okay.
But what other question was there?
Which
Oh, did I
Which
answer
level?
it?
Oh, and then the third heaven.
The third heaven is where God's home is. In the third heaven, it even talks about that. It mentions it in the Bible that God lives in the third heaven. And I know there's people that say we hear things saying the seventh heaven. There are areas above the third heaven, and that third heaven is where the world called heaven is. It's where most all the angels live and operate from. There are places above that where man doesn't go, and it's not a physical realm. It also is a spirit realm, and it's like private space for the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, so they can get a break. But heaven itself, the world called heaven, is in that high level. The third heaven is where he lives.
Okay. One more. This is another. I keep finding questions from kids, and I just love to ask they just ask the best
I might
questions.
add this. At night, if you see the stars in the sky, that's still the first heaven.
Okay.
Above all the stars, a lot of the stars we can see with our
Galaxies.
human eyes.
Galaxies would still be the first heaven.
Above that is where the second heaven is in the spirit realm. He's at, and God is way beyond. Heaven itself is way beyond that.
Awesome.
Which is pretty amazing when you think how big it is.
It is
Oh, yeah.
massive.
It's that we're like
mind blowing.
like it takes millions of light years.
I
to
would
get.
encourage people, if you want to see how tiny this Earth is in comparison to just the other planets, the round planets.
I was gonna say that the other
If
round
you go
planets,
to NASA, NASA,
which is an actual
the
thing.
National Aeronautics and Space Administration, I even know what it means. They're the ones who send all the astronauts up, and they have the space station.
And they have our
And
new
now we have a space
force.
command.
We have
Woohoo!
the Space Force.
We have the Space Force now. Literally, we do here in America. I love it. So anyway,
What were you going to
what
ask?
was I
Jen?
saying?
you were telling them if they go to NASA.
Go to NASA.com and look at the gallery, the space gallery. It shows you all the galaxies, the planets, and at one point they will show you how big, whatever that planet is, I can remember. Jupiter. Thank you, Holy Spirit. He just told me.
There's a lot of planets, Kat. I don't
If you
know.
put Earth next to Jupiter, okay, Jupiter would look bigger than our sky, and Earth would be like a little peanut standing next to it, because Earth is an extremely small planet out in the cosmos. And yet that is where God chose to put man, and that's where he chose to send his son to be born and to die for us and be resurrected. And that's where we are supposed to rule from. So it's really awesome to get to see literally what's out there from all the telescopes and the years and years of them collecting information.
Okay, so back to the other. This is from Selena.
It's a squirrel in the
I'm
background.
not even
if you
gonna
can
try.
hear that. A squirrel came in and started moving things around.
Is there a squirrel over there moving things around?
No, I don't think so.
I'm not going to try to pronounce the rest of her name, but I can. Selena. And she said her daughter wants to know if there is ice cream in heaven.
Oh, yes.
And then she had a question too. And she said, I've always had the desire to hug Jesus. Can you talk about that? I love him so much, and it always brings me comfort when I imagine hugging him.
Well,
so
Jesus,
is there ice cream in heaven, and can
Yes.
you hug Jesus?
Yes, and
Can you
you
do both at the same time?
could actually do them in heaven at the same
You
time.
can have ice cream with Jesus.
You can have ice cream with it. Of course, they have ice cream in heaven because there's food in heaven, and anything you like or love to eat is in heaven. But ice cream, I would try to think of the size of the scoops of ice cream.
Like maybe a softball?
Oh, maybe a little bit bigger than a softball.
A bowling ball?
Now we're not talking about a little tiny. It's not. They're not little. They're huge. Okay, it'd be about the size of 4 regular scoops put together down here.
Ooh, yay.
And so, yes, and all different kind of flavors. So they definitely have ice cream, and everyone who lives in heaven goes to the ice cream parlors. So anyway, there's ice cream in heaven, and yes, Jesus loves to hug people. He usually greets people many times. He's the one who actually takes them in his own chariot up to heaven when they move from this world. When they pass and move to heaven, many times he comes to get them. Sometimes on a horse, sometimes in his own chariot. They have all different ways they can take you to heaven in transports, but he's usually the first person who either comes to get you or you meet him in heaven. And
Awesome.
when you hug him, he feels like love, like you're hugging love. And his presence and his love and his life will flow into you, even on this earth, if you perchance have the blessing to get to see him in person on the earth. I have. And he sat next to me on my love seat and put his arm around me. I thought I was going to melt. But I had to pay attention to what he was saying. So many times he comes in person to say something to me. So there's no mistake that he means what he's saying. And the one thing he wanted me to tell everybody is that he loves them. It was worth all he went through to die on the cross, to give himself for us. And he knows that we are all family. He would love for everyone to go to heaven. So please share the truth with people, that you have to receive Christ as your Savior. But there absolutely was a way made to go there one day and just live with him. So it's amazing. His eyes look like liquid pools of love. He's got kind of loose curls in his hair, and it comes down to about his shoulders. And then the more glory he releases from himself, he begins to become just a blaze of glory. But he can dim all of that, and he can look at you face to face, and he will probably more than likely hug you if he sees you on the earth.
That's awesome. Yay!
He is strong. He's not weak. His hair's not straight and split down the middle like a lot of old pictures show of him. He's not. He's very vibrant. He's very strong, because in his physical body on the earth, he lifted trees. He was a carpenter. So he was used to lifting heavy things. And he loves sweets. So, I'll end with that.
You could have ice cream with
You could have ice cream with Jesus, yes.
Probably has a favorite flavor.
He
Yeah,
probably
that's
does.
true.
It's probably chocolate.
So
One more question.
One more. We didn't have any random. You didn't run into any random weird people again like you normally do.
Oh no.
That phoned in. I mean, that you recorded. Sorry.
No. Haven't met any this week.
Okay.
All...
It's because they're all quarantined.
Yeah.
They're quarantined.
You can't.
I know.
Yeah, the gym's closed. So okay. All right. Let's do this one. Is from Juanita. After your heavenly visits, are you ever undone after being in the presence of a holy God? So this is for you, Kat.
Yes. Yeah.
So.
Absolutely, yes. And actually, Jen has been present.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I was gonna say sometimes
Jen has been present when I was brought back from
she
heaven.
doesn't even talk for hours.
Sometimes I can't talk. Sometimes I'm shaking, or sometimes I'm yelling.
And sometimes she
I'm
actually
so
looks like
excited.
she's glowing.
Yeah, you would have to answer that.
There's
I
like
don't
this
see myself.
bright. Like I always know when she's gone there.
Yeah.
Because she just stares straight ahead, and she literally does look like she's got this light coming off of her skin. And
Which is normal for people who've been to heaven.
I walked in before and started to talk to her, and then she didn't answer me, and then I looked and I went, okay, I will come back later. And then I just turn around and walk away.
You can't help but be undone. Even Isaiah said that in the book of Isaiah, when he was undone and he saw the throne high and lifted up, and the train, when it says his train filled the temple, that train is not a physical or cloth train. That is the trail of angels, all the angels that go with him wherever he goes. And so he was undone. He couldn't even speak. And even in the Bible, people who saw God, they couldn't speak. They couldn't even express what they had seen. And even Paul didn't want to talk about it. He said it was so holy, he couldn't even talk about what he had seen or what had been shown to him, unless you have a commission to see that. And then, so that's why there's so much revelation about heaven, because he's taken me so many times.
Yeah.
But it's not about me. It's not because I'm so much more important. It's just that he gave me a photographic memory. I remember the thousands of times I've been to heaven. And I'm a detail person. Because if I was a normal person, you'd be getting about 5 words, maybe 2 sentences from me about what I saw. But because I'm a detail person, You get the details about the place I was in, what it looked like, what it smelled like, what things taste like, what activity was going on, what the expressions were on the people's faces, even the words that they were saying, the music that they were singing, what the angels look like. There's so many different types of them. You get detail because he made me that way on purpose, knowing one day he would do that with me.
Awesome. Is that it? Are we done?
I think we are done. I think that's probably a wrap.
Yes, because I don't even know how long we talked, but that's
I don't know,
a good
but be
one.
wrapped in the glory of God right now and pursue him. Never stop pursuing him. People say, well, how did you get all this? I have a commission, like they came in person and told me I had a commission. But in that time in my life, I had sought just the presence of God. I didn't ask him for anything. I didn't want him to do anything for me. I didn't even ask him to take me anywhere. I was pursuing a relationship with Jesus Christ. I wanted him to know him and know everything about him. So even when I would say to Jesus, without seeing him, I'm going to spend time with you tonight at 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock. I'm going to go be alone and I'm just going to talk to you and worship you with no one there. It's just going to be for you. I didn't tell him all my problems. I wasn't even praying at that time. It was like if you were going to find a new best friend, you wouldn't tell them everything you needed or everything that was wrong. You would want to say things that would make them want to be with you. And so all I wanted to do was talk about him. And then one day he walked through the wall of my home. And this was many, many, many years ago. That probably was maybe 45 years ago, possibly 50 years ago.
Well, isn't there a scripture that says, what you pursue, you become?
It says, as a man thinketh in
Yes,
his heart or
that's
his
it.
soul,
Yeah.
that is what you will become.
Yes.
But it was just a hunger I had, and part of that was my earthly dad had such a hunger and knew
He
Christ.
did.
He was a
He
good
did.
example, and I know everybody doesn't have a good example, but your real father who carried you inside of himself and sent you to this earth to have a physical body that one day you might receive his son and come back to him, that, if you're a born-again believer, that is the DNA that's on the inside of you. And you will one day meet that Father, and you'll know that you were always with him before you were here.
Awesome. Any final words you want to say? It is Good Friday, but yeah. It's
So,
Good Friday, but
We are
we're gonna
recording
post
this,
it. Yeah.
and at
Friday.
this time, many people back in the city of Jerusalem, they were very fearful for their lives. Christ had been crucified already, and at this point, in this time, he had already died. And his spirit man, he actually released his spirit from his own body. You know that. I think people may know that. They didn't actually take his life. He actually had to send his spirit man from his body because, of course, he was the Son of God. And when he did that, he didn't go up to heaven yet. He went down to Abraham's bosom so he could see the thief. Y'all need to read the scriptures and what it says about that, okay? Because Sunday was the greatest day of all when he wasted hell and then rose from the dead, got his body back, and then he ascended back to heaven to see his Father. So it's one of the most powerful. The passion of the Christ, the crucifixion, of course, is about paying the price Christ paid that we might know him. But the resurrection is about the power, the glory, the splendor of Jesus Christ.
Yep. Okay.
So peace be with you.
Yep.
Amen.
Have an awesome Resurrection Day.
Yes.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.